Hello everyone, I'm Conquering History Games and welcome to a new progress report, the first ever progress report video that I've done for the Hearts of Iron 4 Red Flood mod. Let's actually come over here and come to a slightly blurry map of Europe and talk about what this mod is. So this is the alternate history mod that I've been alluding to for quite a while, pretty much all summer. The devs of it contacted me some time ago and started talking to me about it, and as soon as I heard the words futurism, I said, stop drilling, you've hit oil, and I've been very excited for this to come out. And since it looks like this mod is going to be dropping soon.tm, I thought I'd start going over the progress reports of it so that you guys could have at least a little bit of an understanding of how the mod works. And I'm actually not starting with number 1, I'm starting with progress report 11, which is France, because this is the nation I intend to play first when we get started. But I'll be playing some of the other nations too. So let's talk about what the point of divergence is for this mod. The first point of divergence happens in 1905, but that's not really the main selling point, so to speak. But basically, Russia wins the Russo-Japanese War, so they are stronger during World War I, and this leads to the Allies achieving victory in World War I without the help of the U.S., although it's more of a, they didn't win so much as they didn't. It's like, you wouldn't say the Allies won, you would say the Allies didn't lose. For example, there is a period where Germany is occupying Luxembourg, they're occupying northeast France, and there's a lot of complicated things going on. I'm actually going to read a little bit of what happened right after World War I here, just to give you guys a clue of what's going on in 1936. So, during and after the Great War, France was in chaos. Communist forces stirred discontent and made riots incredibly common, claiming the state was corrupt and bourgeois, making France unable to organize itself against the German menace. Unfortunately, after the war, this didn't improve with the forming of paramilitaries in both the left and right wing. France falls into civil war. However, what remained of the French army managed to keep enough order to make the country not collapse. Until 1927, France was in a state of complete economic ruin. It was only at this time it began to recover, and by 1929, the Great Depression had begun. France was once again in a profound crisis, and soon enough armed uprisings ensued. Now in this world, the Great Depression starts in the UK. So, in 1930, a large uprising in Troyes, Nancy, and Verdun creates the short-term Second Commune of France, pertaining to another larger uprising from 1920. The Légion Française, which was the anti-communist force in the country, had dissolved by then and broken into multiple paramilitary cliques, consisting of monarchists, liberals, conservatives, radical reactionaries, and so forth. But one group manages to stir up enough popularity to be able to do a putsch that dissolves the Fourth French Republic that had only been about a decade old by then. And this group was the Parti Futuriste Français. So this has to do with futurism. So I'm not going to talk about futurism a whole lot here, but futurism is basically an artistic movement that, in our own timeline, originated in Italy. This is probably the most famous piece of futurist art, called Unique Forms of Continuity in Space. I'm going to talk a lot about futurism when I play the mod. It's a very, very interesting artistic movement, a social movement as well, and it even today still has influences on the Western and Eastern canons of art. Really cool stuff. Get ready to hear some poetry from me. So anyway, the party, the Parti Futuriste Français, is headed by Fernand Luger, who's popular with the intellectual avant-garde, radical anti-establishment figures, and a lot of other groups. This becomes known as the Nice Putsch, and Leger literally tears up the constitution of the Republic and throws it into the Nice River in Paris, so that's why it gets called that. So they create the French Fifth Republic, and the new constitution says that the greater purpose of the state is to, quote, be a force of art and to not allow a single disruption towards any art, unquote. Now, the French army isn't able to stop this because they're fighting the communists. And so by the time the French army tries to stop the Futurists, they're fighting the Communists, but also the Futurists. So there's a bloody battle in Troyes. The Communists are kicked out of France. Tens of thousands of them are put into prison or executed, and all the others go into Germany, which it's a little blurry here, but you'll probably see it's the German Socialist Republic here. So there's that Red Flood, basically the Spartacist uprising of 1919 is successful in this timeline. So the Fifth French Republic is established, and they start recovering due to state control and a corporate economy being created. So by the early 1930s, they're all set. And they're able to use the money from a dummy company called SOME, S-O-M-E, to revive the industry and create an army. But it is a volunteer-only army, because whenever they attempt to do conscription, there are riots and unrest. That's probably because the Allies, it was a much more difficult task to win World War I in this timeline, because the USA never intervened. But if there is an emergency, they will use conscription on a limited scale. So, when the game starts, they're going to have 77 factories around La Métropole, 20 factories in the colonies, 25 military factories, and 25 of the 77 factories are going to be military ones. And they're going to have 15 dockyards. They're also going to have 40 infantry divisions with 16 width that are fully equipped and have support artillery. There's going to be a Garde Présidentielle infantry division in Paris that's just for militia battalions that are veterans. There will be 10 colonial divisions dispersed in the following way: 1 in Senegal, 6 in Algeria and Morocco, 1 in the Congo, 1 in Madagascar, and 1 in French Guiana. They'll have 1,900 planes, consisting of 700 fighters, 900 bombers, and 300 close air support, and 120 ships, 8 of them being 1906 carriers, and 35 submarines. All right, so let's kind of get moving now. Just a second. I've got like a lot of notes in the second tab here that I'm trying to use. Okay. Goodness, we're 7 minutes in already. So let's start talking about France in 1936. So the where do I start? Goodness gracious. So let's talk about the three factions that could take charge in France. First are the Escadron, who are led by Charles Nungesser, who was a famous French pilot. And the Escadron believe in accelerationism. So accelerationism was and is this idea that industrial growth, industrial technological progress should not only be embraced but or accepted, but accelerated as quickly as possible. This has fallen. There are left-wing and right-wing ideologies behind the versions, I should say, of accelerationism. For example, there are Marxists who believe in accelerationism because there's the idea that, you know, the faster you industrialize, the faster you can start getting to those steps that are going to lead to a communist state and things like that. But basically, the Escadron, who I think I have the... Oops, wrong. I have their flag here. The Escadron believe that France can accelerate if the whole nation is united into a machine-like collective devoted to technological progress at any cost. The second faction is led by Georges Bataille. By the way, I'm so sorry about all French pronunciations. I once tried to learn French when I was younger, but I got pissed off about all the silent letters. So that's not happening. I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. So this guy was an esoteric writer and mystical hedonist. Him and the Asif Ali believe in a variant of esoteric futurism. This is their flag, by the way. Esoteric, by the way, means it's deliberately meant to be understood by as few people as possible. So kind of Dadaism, that kind of stuff, which I'll also talk a lot about when the campaigns start. But their belief is that the economy is driven by surplus consumption and hedonism instead of scarcity. So they're going to create an aristocracy that is devoted to mystical enlightenment through bodily pleasure. We'll talk more about that in some detail later. And then finally, we have the Druidists, who are led by Mark Aiguier, who in our own timeline volunteered to fight for the Nazis. He is a novelist and a hermit and crazy. And him and the Druidists, this is their flag, they believe that French utopia can only be achieved through natural organic acceleration rather than industrial acceleration. And so they want to create an ideal of austerity, decentralization, and traditional Celtic values. And it's possible that these guys can become very Luddite, which we'll talk about in detail. So let's spoilers. Okay, so let's start with talking about the Escadron victory. So when the Escadron initially come to power, they're seen as the status quo, and they're going to have a series of policies to accelerate the industry, like I've been saying. By the way, there are so many terrific national focus icons throughout this mod. It's fantastic stuff. I love it. And yeah, it's just appreciate that. I'm not going to point out all of them, like what every single individual one is, but it's just fantastic. So anyway, they're all about the rapid technological industrialization. So state beyond labor or capital, centralized corporate structure, modernization without mercy, etc. In the perverted societies, we'll go into those perverted societies later. Now, we're going to have, after the modernization without mercy, there is going to be Spartan homosexuality that will be approved by the state. Motorist gang culture will actually be encouraged among the state youth. I think that's what's going to be this Children of the Patrons. But you're seeing the accelerations throughout here. So, like, promoting homoeroticism, fast life, faster, all sorts of stuff. A new faith will be created, Techno-Catharism. To create a religious adherence to the ideology. And even the Arabs are going to get to talk about, have their input into futurism, and so they'll be given freedoms as such. So there is no gods but speed, and Artuad is his prophet. Fast sort of Islam of the future, anti-colonialism down here, freedom under French protection, France, salam alaikum. So I get, pan-Islamic Congress. So they're going to give freedom. It seems like it's going to be something like they'll give freedom and greater rights to the colonists in return for religious devotion, which should be interesting. However, did I talk about who Artuard is? Well, hold on a sec. It's I'm so sorry. I should have talked about this before, but Artuad is like the head of the futurists idea in a way. In our own timeline, he was a poet and an actor and a theater director, but he's a big part of avant-garde France. Which hold on a sec, I've got some notes on avant-garde France. And if I'm not going over every single thing here. There's just way too much to cover. But Antonin Artuard. Let me try to find a picture of him. I'm so sorry, I should have talked about him at the start, but I don't want to restart the video. Just a second. Here we go. So this is him. And so unlike the original timeline, he's not an actor because he was rejected. And he's just been homeless as a mime until World War I starts. And so in World War I, he fights. He suffers from a gas attack in the Somme, and afterwards he starts hearing voices in his head, and he's meant to be like a Joan of Arc figure, where these voices are directing him in a way to save France. And his vision says that France will dominate pretty much all of Europe from Gibraltar to the Urals, and it's going to be free from conservatism as well as communism. And so he ends up joining with the Escadron. So that's why the Escadron are the ones who are seen as the status quo. Now the Escadron, I also forgot to say this, the reason why they're kind of associated with the pilots is because when World War I was going on, they created a daredevil unit of pilots called the Escadron. And so they were made up of ace pilots, but also meant to crush socialists, and they become radicalized after the war because the common soldiers in the unit, because eventually they had ground forces too, weren't able to find jobs in civilian life. So they're not reactionary, but they are anti-communists, and they work because they do work with some socialist parties like the Cyrillianists and the neo-socialists. So they're like French leftists, but they're in opposition to the German Spartacus socialism. This is a great example to say that, like, I've never really liked those political compass pictures, like, you know, they're just a square, because if anything, political ideologies can be more of a Rubik's Cube. So yeah, this is the guy. This is the guy, and he's part of a wave of avant-garde futurism that's sweeping Europe in this timeline. But in France, they specifically call it national surrealism, which is Sorelian, Sorelian, in that it rejects logic and rationality. It's also rejecting aglodramatic materialism. It rejects capitalism. It rejects communism. This is a new reality. And in the national surrealism of France, this new reality is going to be completely French. Only the French can exist. Everyone will submit to the French people, to French space, to French time, to French understanding of reality. But incidentally, this guy is especially trippy to me because a guy who I was great friends with in high school, who's now an actor, he looks almost exactly like this guy. So I like to imagine that my friend is like a time traveler. He's been reincarnated. So national surrealism coming to the United States soon. Anyway, so that was quite a tangent. Anyway, so where were we? We were talking about Islam. Let me get back to my notes. Where's my notes? Shit. Oh, shit. Sorry. Okay. So, here's the thing, though. The Escadron, have been taking their idealism of Artaud and accelerationism to a disturbing extent. This is actually not the picture for that. Here we go. Yeah, we'll have the legacy of the revolution. They're going to start opposing the Vatican. They're going to create communes of love, hear the voices, monopoly on morality, the all-knowing patron, there's him, in three things, new sex, and stuff like that. And incidentally, let's actually take a quick look at an event that's going to happen. A Brave New World. This is October of 1936. Following the latest initiative to improve our grand cities, La Patronne and Bataille. Wait a minute. Oh, no. Sorry. This is in the wrong space. No, this is over here. Ignore that. Anyway, so where we are. Yeah, we're in Legacy of the Revolution, so this is where we are right now. Ask questions in the comments, please. I'll elaborate. I know that I'm not being super organized. So anyway, this particular sect of Escadron has gone so into the deep end on accelerationism that they no longer see themselves as individual people. Instead, they're cogs of the broader et irreal. And so their goal is to remove all semblances of personhood on the conceptual level. And so every soul, machine, reality, these are all extensions of Le Patron. Wait a minute, whoops. It's because I have the two monitors going, so so here we go. Banning of individual existence, all heading down to et irreal, faster than time, collective dream, speed beyond space, and so stuff. So personhood and the self are decadent lies that distract from the truth. We are all extensions of the one avatar of speed, of creation, of destruction. The holy man and God, the absolute unit, Le Patron. So, you know, as I'm going over this, I totally should, like, if I do this path when I do France, which I might do this path. I should put, like, all the flashes, you know, from DC Comics, the superhero, in the thumbnail, because you know, the Speed Force. Anyway, So, in summation, all of society is geared towards industrial acceleration and societal idealism, to the point that everybody is a le patron and reality itself is being remade. So that is the Escadron way. Alright, next, let's take a look at the Asif Ali victory path. This is led by Georges Batial, and this is their logo, as I said before. So the idea is going to be to liberalize the nation. I guess this ain't neoliberalism, this is something way beyond. And the idea is that there's going to be an aristocracy of anarchy. So any individual can get as much wealth as they like, and then they could waste it in the most hedonistic ways that they please. So whereas the Escadron want to reach the future via technology, and the Druidists, who want to reach the future through nature, the Asif Ali want to reach enlightenment and utopia through the mysticism of hedonism. So they're going to, I'll come back to this image. They're going to increase decentralization, so that ethnicities and then later individuals can pursue as much pleasure as possible. So you see 4 centers of the future: Dunkirk, Marseille, Brest, and Paris. And these things will all come into to the futurist paradise. Also, beware the eternal Anglo. They will ensure that down here. Also, Marseille, this is where the patron was born. Brest, this is going to have some of the Celtic stuff in here. And then, of course, Paris is Paris. So many great logos. I love this. So there will also be an influx of commercialism into the colonies. So you get in infrastructure, Dakar airport, encourage the local elites, more settlers, destroying local, destroying native populism and embracing local art movements. You can see where this is all going. So here's the thing. If you want to pay for a lot of hallucinogens, parties, and prostitutes, you're going to need a lot of money to do that, so a strong economy is going to be necessary. So we've got the free trade option here, which is where France will privatize everything and sell off their resources. So you sell agricultural resources, French things to all continents, World University of Dunkirk. So the other option is you can go black market globalist, and you're going to work with the Triads and the United Fruit Company and things like that. Cheap tanks, funding wars, global connections, laws for pussies. A lot of not safe for work stuff here, by the way. I don't know if I ever said that, but you're going to be able to do drugs and, well, actually, let me just read you this event. Oops. So this is an event that'll happen in October of 1936. Following the latest initiative to improve our grand cities, Le Patron and Batial had promised to collaborate on creating a new French character of mysticism and luxury. Today, the Duumvirate has finally announced their grand new plan to revolutionize French civilization, the Grand Decadence Decree. Quote, "For too long we have found our spirits bound by petty things like morality and austerity. If we wish to reach a further plane of reality, we must delve into the great reaches of the mystical orgasmic beyond," unquote. Le Patron declared to a crowd of enthralled supporters immediately after delivering a powerful ode to immortality. He passed the spotlight to Bataille. Bataille immediately began a triad on the esoteric potential of hedonism, in which he recounted an extraordinarily enlightening experience he had with several of Paris's finest prostitutes. Then he began relaying his promises. To the children, he promised the finest sweets and candies. To the adults, he promised sex and hallucinogens. As he made this decree, a unit of Asif Ali partisans walked through the crowd, handing out gifts of chocolate and opium, respectively. Despite massive euphoria among the crowds, a few hard-line Escadronist and Druidist protests at the event, even Aiger and Non-Gesser themselves somehow managed to cooperate in jointly leading the protests. However, upon being escorted into the Palais Bourbon, the protesters were greeted by a crowd of our nation's finest women adorned in very little. Needless to say, after hours of pleasure on the very Capitol floors, the men finally understood our grand vision for spiritual liberation. Now, united and euphoric, our nation shall go faster, faster, faster! The future is exhilarating. So there you have it. Okay, third one. Let's talk Druidists. So this is Augier, the man, the myth, the nut job. So So, if he wins, a lot of people are going to be very surprised. Because a lot of France has been devoted to technological futurism in this path, and now the Agrarian is now in charge. So he's going to face a lot of opposition, by the way. This is their flag I showed you before. And when he is inaugurated, there is going to be an assassination attempt. If he comes out unscathed, meaning so he'd be missed by an inch or struck him right in the chest. If he comes out unscathed, he's going to be able to just go through with his platform. Nothing changes. A return to Celtic faith. Look at this: reconquest of the forest, old gods unite with nature, and the Catholic domination, and so on and so forth. A lot of great images here. Tribal democracy. And so futurism is going to morph some more. So instead of post-Roman accelerationism, it's going to go with organic and local, because the Romans had taken control of France back when it was Gaul. So he's saying, let's go back to Gaulish roots. Now some of you might be saying this is a little extreme. Well, if Augur is shot, great patron, I don't feel so good, Augur confessed to Artaud in his hospital bed. My body just feels horrible, like insects crawling through my very soul. Well, you were just shot, Artaud chuckled, putting his hand on his protege's shoulder. No, that's not it. This body is just flesh. A mere mass of atoms hurtling towards the future. It's my soul which aches. I close my eyes and I just see the flash, feel the sting, hear the screams. God, those screams. Every moment those screams ring just out of consciousness, screaming, yelling, serenading for my demise. I wish they'd leave my head. Artois leaned over to Augier and whispered gently in his ear, Don't worry, I hear them too. Augier's eyes widened and uttered, So why are they here? What do they want? They want what's best. Listen to them. They know more than you. Here's what they have to say. Augier contemplated, then gave an uneasy smile. I need to face this blinding light head on. The light of science, of reason, of the damned plow itself. I know my destiny. Artistic France unlocks focus away with the state. So his ideals are going to get warped. Oh, this is where the fun begins. And Augier is going to just basically become insane. And he's going to, there's the away with the state path that we were talking about. He's going to start burning buildings to the ground. He's going to obliterate the factories. And that means in-game. So, and farms are going to start being revoked so that we can start returning back to the hunter-gatherer existence. They're going to dissolve the military. Instead, there will just be a lot of informal militias who will roam the nation looking for food and also for enemies. Now, these ideas are great, but they're going to be met with opposition. Because there's no arms for the military, because all the factories are fucking gone, and there's no order in society, and so there are going to have to be some harsh measures implemented here, that this isn't working, in order to return humanity back to its pre-civilization state. So, now that France has destroyed itself, let's talk about diplomacy. Their next move, of course, is France must destroy the world. Full speed into the rest of the world. So, for example, they're going to look towards other accelerationist brethren, potentially, but there's way too many of them, so they've got to pick sides. So they could either go Slavic, or they could go Latin, and also American, friendship in the West. So, essentially, they'll also eventually go to where was cuck them for eternity. The Anglo menace, the eternal Anglo must be brought down. Including friendship with Scotland, aiding the Semites, a lot of interesting stuff here. So in conclusion, France is going to be a horrible, absurdly dystopian experience, the most horrific and absurdly dystopian experience you'll find in any mod ever. Everybody is going to tremble, and France will be a terror for the ages. But if you are skilled enough, you could reign over perhaps the greatest empire in history. And there you have it. the French progress report for the Red Flood mod for Hearts of Iron 4. I'm extremely looking forward to it. I hope you all are too. Please ask me questions in the comments below. I know that I wasn't as organized as I probably should have been, but it's going to be a wild ride, and I can't wait. I'm Conquering History Games. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Be sure to click the bell so you'll also be notified whenever videos on the other progress reports for this mod come out, and of course so you'll be notified when I do my French campaign. I will see you all then. Have a wonderful day. Bye.